Hey there, welcome to another quick video. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about a reality check of what's realistic to expect as a copywriter. And the reason that I'm doing this video is someone sent me an email that was sort of a sales pitch for a membership program that made some pretty wild claims about, making 7 figures as a copywriter, like your first year out the gate and things like that. So I wanted to go over a quick couple of red flags, green flags, and what's realistic to expect in the market today in 2025 as I'm recording this. So if you're new here, my name is Jocelyn. I've been working in media and as a writer for the last 20 years, and I help people build a freelance writing career that they love. So if you are new or you are pivoting from another career, this is your place for real world information from a working writer. Okay, now I have my notes. I did it on my laptop today, so I'm gonna just sort of be referring to those just to try to stay on point and not make this a crazy long video, because I have a lot to say about it. So basically, the pitch of this email was, you can, if you become a copywriter, you can work at home in your pajamas. You're going to make 6 figures a year. You don't need any experience. You just need to sign up for their course, of course. And that's it. It's just fantastic and it's wonderful. And you can just go vacation on the Riviera every summer and winter if you want, because you're going to be rolling in money. So it was a little much, but they did have some legitimate information in there. And I went to the site and I looked around, and there were some green flags too. So I want to be fair and point out some of the pros and cons here if you see a claim like this, or sort of what to expect. Okay, so my immediate reaction, of course, was skepticism. That's putting it mildly. But then the more I looked into it, it actually was not very expensive, and they seem to have a lot of resources, which I'll get into in a minute. So first of all, let's kind of go through a couple of red flags. And I know that if you've been around for more than 5 minutes, anyone who's promising you that you're going to make a ton of money with no effort, it's not legit. Copywriting is a skill, just like everything else, and you don't really need a certification, but you do need to have skills and you do need to have knowledge. I think this program also had a certification program, if I remember correctly, which is fine. I don't know how much it cost. I didn't look into that, but just know that you don't actually need that. It's a nice to have maybe if you want, but it's not necessary. So really quickly on the making $1 million your first year situation, they didn't say what area of copywriting this person was writing in, so I don't want to be immediately dismissive of it. I'm sure there might be some highly technical field out there where that might be possible, but I will say this is the point that I wanted to make, is that if you're making that kind of money, in most cases, it's because you are doing work through an agency with very large companies, and you're working with companies that have very large budgets, and you're working in a niche where a lot of skill is needed. So for example, when I started working in the energy field, my rates went way up. I was making 6-figure years. That's not unrealistic if you work in any kind of financial, technical, healthcare, energy, any of these fields that are highly regulated, you are going to make more. It is not unreasonable to think that you will have a 6-figure income if you are copywriting in a field where there's a lot of technical knowledge needed, or there's a lot of regulation involved, because you're going to be dealing with lawyers, you're going to be dealing with subject matter experts, you're going to be doing a lot more interviewing. There's just more knowledge required, and there's just more you're going to need to do. There's bigger teams involved. There's usually bigger budgets involved. So in that respect, if you are in a niche where, if you're coming out of if you're pivoting from a career where, you have a lot of technical knowledge and you're working for, say, a startup, or you're working a highly funded startup, or you're working for a company in fintech, you're going to be fine. Like, it's reasonable to expect that you will make 6 figures. Yes. Will you make 7 figures? I don't know. I don't know on that one. I have never had a 7-figure year, but then again, I'm not doing 7-figure niche work. So, take that for what you will. I think that if you are to contrast that to like the first 10 years that I was freelancing, I was doing it as a side hustle. So I had a 9 to 5 editorial job, and then I would, freelance for magazines and clients on nights and weekends. And at that time, my niche was hospitality. I loved writing about hotels, convention centers, food. I was a contributing writer for a magazine. I did so much in the food and beverage space and travel, and I loved it. But, is that a six-figure niche? No. It wasn't at that time anyway, and I'm pretty sure you could say that it still isn't, because hospitality and food and beverage, everybody wants to do it, and there's kind of a lower barrier of entry. It's not like you need to have specialized knowledge. There's no regulatory bodies involved for the most part. Well, there is for food, but my point is, in that, if that's your niche, it's fantastic and it's fun and it's amazing. But are you going to make 6 figures a year? Probably not. I don't know. I guess it depends on a lot of things, but I would say probably not. So have realistic expectations with your niche. And that's another reason why, in a lot of my content on my website, I always write about having a niche and being aware of the type of writing that you want to do, because it will impact how much you make. So, take that for what it is worth. A couple of the green flags, though. When I went and looked at their materials, they had a lot of really good materials. And I think they were charging, it was less than $100 for a year's worth of unlimited access. And they had courses. This place had been around for a long time. In fact, I'm relatively sure that they bought another company that I used to take classes at. Like, we're talking like 15 years ago. Because I recognized some of the titles and things, and I was like, oh, that seems familiar. I might have taken that like 15 years ago. So this company may have bought other companies. I don't really know. I don't know the backstory. I did not do a lot of research on that. However, they had a lot of content, and the price point for entry was, I don't remember the exact number. It was less than $100 though for a year's access. So if you have that in your budget and you're just starting out, if you get unlimited access to all of their information and you get to like participate in their groups and things like that. Me personally, I don't need it at this point in my career, but if I was just starting out, I would find a way to get that, $50 or $100 or whatever it is. And I would probably do it for a year and try to get, try to get as much as I could out of it. Because there was a lot of, it seemed to be really useful information. So if you see, a course or, a certification or anything like that, just sort of do a gut check on whether it seems legit, whether the content is relatively new. The one other red flag that I didn't mention was a lot of the examples they were giving were from like the 80s and 90s. And I was like, no, it doesn't really work that way anymore. And they did have a module on AI, which looked pretty interesting. But, I don't know if I was actually in there looking through stuff. There might be some, hit and miss kind of stuff in there. But anyway, just sort of keep an eye out for that if you're looking at different programs. Let's see. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes really quick. So, another thing they had a lot of were templates, and they seem to have a lot of sort of hand-holding materials, which when you're starting out, you kind of need that. And I totally get that and understand that. I would say take some of it with a grain of salt, see if it works for you. Another point I wanted to say was if you treat it like a toolbox and it's within your budget, you're not stressing yourself out to pay for it. There's nothing wrong with getting more education. There's nothing wrong with taking that course or, joining that membership program. I was thinking back and remembering when I first started, there was a similar kind of program where they had boot camps, and you would pay, I think it was $25 a month, and you would get access to all of their boot camps. And they had a lot. They had like 10 or 15 different boot camps about all different kinds of copywriting and writing for magazines and like all kinds of things. Now, I already had an editorial background, so I knew about writing for magazines, but I didn't know about copywriting. So I remember I joined for 2 months and I just did all the copywriting boot camps, and I learned as much as I could. And I used that to, figure out what I was doing, create some samples. I have a free 7 days to freelancing challenge, which I will link in the description below. And one of the days is creating samples if you don't have any yet. And so I kind of walk you through how to do that. And when I started out, that's what I had to do because I didn't have any samples, right? So anyway, things like that are valuable. So I do kind of, that will help you, start earning faster, in my opinion. So one thing that was sort of promoted in here is, the membership will help you network. I've joined a lot of groups over the years. I mean, I've probably joined just about everything that was out there. That's not where I really got my networking from. That's one thing that I would caution if you start to take a lot of workshops is not to fall into what I call becoming a workshop zombie, where you're just kind of like going from workshop to workshop to workshop. At some point, you just have to do the thing. When I was first starting out, there were several people that I met through networking groups, and we were all sort of on the same kind of journey. And a lot of those people either fell off or never really did it, just kind of maybe did one or two things, but then never really put themselves out there. They just did workshop after workshop. And it is something that I noticed, is that sometimes you will meet people in these groups and it'll start out being super exciting and you're like rah rah and you're really supporting each other and you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna like do this and be great. And then they end up sort of never doing it. They just do workshop after workshop after workshop. So just be aware that that can sometimes be an issue for people, and try not to get caught up in that. Like for me, I could only really afford to do 2 months of that program. That was it. No, I take it back. I also did, this was at least 5 or 6 years ago. It was maybe a little longer than that. I paid like $1,500 to do a year mastermind. And it was all about content marketing. And I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be great. I'm going to like make all these connections and I'm going to, take my business to the next level and, all that kind of stuff. And it was good. I did get a lot of information. I got as much as I could out of it. Okay. It was more than $1,500 now that I'm thinking about it. But anyway, I did this program. I did meet some really nice people. I did take advantage of learning as much as I could from it. I don't know if I would do it again, but it was definitely part of my learning journey. So, I mean, if you can afford it, and this is the thing, I did it at a point in my career where I could afford to do it. And it wasn't a hardship for me. It was just, I considered it a cost of doing business. I considered it, it was a mastermind that I did. And, it was all right. But like with anything, you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. So I don't know, maybe could I have done more? Could I have gotten more out of it? I don't know. Anyway, that's just a side note. Sorry, just scrolling through my notes really quick. So wrapping it up, are you going to make $1 million copywriting your first year? Probably not. I don't think that's a realistic expectation. I think it's going to depend a lot on your niche. So if you want to make 6 figures, if that is your goal, you really want to be a 6-figure freelancer, you need to pick a niche where there's money, frankly. You need to pick something where, I'm trying to think, like finance, health, tech, energy. And in my my free 7-day challenge, which I will link, there's a whole day where you just work on your niche and like how to narrow it down, how to figure out what you want. I also have an article about top paying niches, and I will link that in the description as well. That's on my website, and it's just a blog post. It's free. I'm not charging anything for it. I'm not trying to make money off of this. I know that I had a really difficult time learning, and it took me a long time to build confidence and to figure out what I was doing. I didn't really know anyone who did this kind of work, so it was just sort of like all new to me. So that's why I do this, is to help others who are also on the journey. So basically, 7 figures, not realistic. 6 figures, totally realistic in the right niches. And so check out the resources below. I recommend the 7-day freelancing challenge is geared more toward publication writing, but it's also really helpful for copywriting because you do go through the process of identifying a niche, you do go through the process of writing samples, you do go through the process of putting your portfolio together, and those are all things that you're going to need to do regardless. So even if you want to be a copywriter and not a publications writer, it's still going to be helpful. So I will put that below. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.